Hey, what the hell is going on with you in the face? And over there? What? Hi. Hey, Nick Digilio, that's me. Thanks for checking out my YouTube channel. I cut almost daily videos at YouTube, so please subscribe. Also, please give to Patreon, patreon.com/NickDShow. Pick a tier and donate 3, 6, 25 bucks a month. Whatever you donate, every little bit can help, and it keeps me going with my content, my videos. Helps me out while I do my podcast, which is a separate thing, but this stuff is separate and need a little help getting it all going and keeping things running. So in order to get bonus content and bonus videos that nobody else gets, including behind-the-scenes stories of WGN and other radio stories and other behind-the-scenes things that only patrons can get, donate today. Very important. Please do it. Patreon.com/NickDShow. Patreon.com/NickDShow. My podcast drops every Tuesday and Friday, new episodes. It's the Nick D Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network. Okay, so I went to a movie yesterday, and it was a film that I was a few days late seeing. It came out on Friday. Today is Tuesday, which means a new podcast episode drops today. So you should check it out, radiomisfits.com. Anyway, so I saw the movie yesterday at the Music Box Theater, and it's called You Won't Be Alone. And I had heard, many things about it. I heard that it was, really terrific horror movie, that it was very unusual. It played at Sundance just this past year. It's a brand new movie, 2022 release. That it was, the way they're advertising it, Focus Features is the studio that released it. Very cool, independent, sort of, not really anymore, but started out as very low independent. And they advertise it very much in the way that A24 advertises their movies. And A24 currently is the best independent studio on the planet that is doing really great work, really intelligent horror movies that actually bring the genre up to a different level. It was made fun of, those types of movies were made fun of in Scream, the last Scream movie, because the Scream movie was fucking stupid, and they made fun of elevated horror, even though those movies that have come out in the last, 10 years or so have actually elevated the genre to new levels. And people who don't like the A24 elevated horror, as they call it, are morons. That's basically what it comes down to. But anyway, so this latest one is called You Won't Be Alone. And they advertised it like, hey, if you liked The Witch, Robert Eggers, fantastic film from a few years ago, you'll love this movie. So I went in thinking, okay, it's going to be strange, crazy, one of these challenging, and Nomi Rapace is in it, who was in Lamb, which was an A24 release from last year, which was a great horror film, very weird, very intellectual, made you think. That's why these stupid horror fans don't like these elevated horror movies, because you actually got to use your brain to watch them, which is astonishing that people don't get that. And I'm a huge horror fan. I love horror movies where people get their heads chopped off and that's it, blood flies all over the place. That's awesome. But if I can actually use my brain and the movie is actually about something more than like special effects and gore, it's always better. Anyway, so You Won't Be Alone, and I went in, saw it, and I was actually, thinking it was going to be that kind of a film, and it's not at all. You Won't Be Alone is the feature debut of an Australian Macedonian filmmaker named Goran Stolevski, and he has done a lot of short films, which I've not seen, and he has worked on Australian television shows and episodic television shows. But this is his first feature, and it's the only film that I've seen that he's made. I've never seen his TV work in Australia. I've never seen any of the shorts that he's made. Based upon this movie, this guy is the deal. This guy is the real deal. You Won't Be Alone is kind of a horror movie, but not really. It's nothing like The Witch, that Robert Eggers film. It's not at all. And I had to adjust my expectations. About 20 minutes into the movie, I was like, okay, this is not at all what I thought it was going to be. And it's not. Very quickly, it takes place in 19th century Macedonia, and it's about this sort of ancient spirit witch that kind of haunts the area in and around the land of this Macedonian village and surrounding area, and it kidnaps this young girl who has been hidden away in a cave for 16 years. to keep away from this spirit. The mother of this little girl hides the girl away until she's 16, and makes a deal with this ancient spirit witch not to take her until she's 16. And then at 16, the witch shows up, the spirit witch shows up, takes her, transforms her into a witch, this young girl who's never seen the world before. She's only been in the bottom of a cave being fed for 16 years by her mother, on bread and dead animals and water and stuff like that. And she's never seen the world. So this spirit witch takes her out, puts a curse on her, and brings her into the real world. And it's about this 16-year-old spirit, this never seen the world before, who is now a witch, who can jump into different bodies as a witch, do like a body jumping thing, and like the Thing or the Hidden or that kind of thing, jump from body to body as a spirit witch, and take over and live life through these different bodies. And that's what this young girl does with her witch curse. She decides that she's curious about life, so she decides to live life as different animals and different people and experience what it's like to be alive. And so then the film becomes this really spiritual journey about life, nothing less than the experience of life, seen through the eyes of different humans and animals, and this innocent thing that is now experiencing life through different beings. And it becomes this poetry, this piece of poetry about life. And yes, it's gory. There's innards and guts and intestines and all kinds of stuff. And yes, it has a very witch-like Grimm's fairy tale fable to it. And that's exactly what it is. It is like a Grimm's fairy tale, really sort of gross, intestine-filled, bloody Grimm's fairy tale fable, but like filtered through Terrence Malick. This is the best movie that Terrence Malick has never directed. It's like the tree of life of witch movies. It is so beyond what I expected it to be. It is a gorgeous, magnificent, and profoundly beautiful movie. Deeply, deeply moving to the point where I was in tears a few times during the film. It's as magnificent and sort of oblique and mysterious as Terrence Malick can get at his best when he's doing visual poetry and not telling a regular narrative and doing all these wonderful visual scenes and voiceovers and things like that. That's what this movie is. Stolevsky has made a Terrence Malick-inspired horror fable, and it's magnificent. It is like profoundly beautiful. The imagery, the voiceover, the dialogue, the music. And yes, it's got quality kills in it if you want to do that. It's got gore and guts and intestines and stuff. It's got lots of nudity and there's lots of sex in it and stuff like that. But there is this overwhelming sense of awe and beauty about the world and everything in it. And that's what Terrence Malick does at his best. Terrence Malick is a guy who does visual poetry about the world we live in, the poetry of everyday life, of being a human being, of being on this planet, of experiencing the joys and the wonder all around us. That's what Terrence Malick does, and that's what this guy did in this movie. It's a phenomenal film, and I thought, okay, cool, scary, gory, intellectual witch movie. Cool, that's what I'm going to see. I got much more than that. What I got was an incredibly beautiful, profoundly rich, poetic examination of life in all its foibles and all its beauty in the style of Terrence Malick. I did not expect to see visual poetry, Terrence Malick style, when I went to go see You Won't Be Alone, but that's exactly what it is. I mean, if you like Terrence Malick, if you want to see visual poetry, if you want to see something that is deeply, significantly moving and beautiful to watch, visual poetry, that's what You Won't Be Alone is. You Won't Be Alone is a magnificent piece of work. I can't wait to see it again, see it on the big screen. It's a Terrence Malick-inspired horror fable. That's what it is, in every way. And it's as good as anything that Terrence Malick can make. It's that fucking good. So, not what I expected, but it's a witch movie, and that got me to thinking about witch movies. And I happen to be a huge fan of witch movies. I didn't realize this. that I think my favorite characters in movies are witches. Some of my favorite characters of all time in movies are witches. And I love witch movies. Now, oddly, the most classic witch movie / witch characters belong in a movie that I don't like, and that's The Wizard of Oz. I can't stand The Wizard of Oz, but I have a ton of other witch movies here that I want to fly through, some classic witch characters and some of my favorites. Now, I mentioned The Wizard of Oz. I don't know what it is. I don't like it. I've never liked it. Even as a kid, I was like, fuck this movie. As a little kid, the monkey scared the shit out of me. The flying monkey scared the shit out of me, which was cool. And it's still my favorite part of the movie. But I never liked it. I didn't like the music. To me, I think The Wizard of Oz is a fucking mess. And I know that that's like sacrilegious to say. I don't care. I don't like The Wizard of Oz. Oddly, I love Return to Oz, that everybody hates, the sequel that everybody hates. I thought the witches in that were cool. And the way that movie was handled was beautiful. So I love Return to Oz, 1985, Fairuza Balk's film debut, where it opens up with Dorothy getting a shock treatment. People hate that movie. I love it. And I loved Oz and Great and Powerful, that Sam Raimi directed with James Franco from 2013. I love that movie. I think that's beautiful, funny and imaginative and great. The witches in that movie are fantastic. Michelle Williams, Rachel Weisz, and Mila Kunis. That's as good as it gets. Those three witches are handled beautifully. They're distinctive. They're awesome. They're stylish. The three actresses are great. So I hate The Wizard of Oz. I really like Oz, Great and Powerful, and I love Return to Oz. That's just me. But those are classic witches. Other ones, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, I believe is the sort of quintessential image of a witch that we have. And it's a great, beautiful, magnificent piece of animation. One of the greatest animated films ever made, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Great film and a great witch, classic witch. Here are some other ones. I Married a Witch with Veronica Lake from 1942. There was a witch movie, a Haxan, from 1922, which is I think maybe the first, at least, full-length witch movie that was made. 1922, silent film, Haxan. And it goes by a different name that I can't remember right now. But one of the early ones, Veronica Lake, the beautiful Veronica Lake, I Married a Witch. Really cool movie. And part comedy and part examination of witches and stuff. But yeah, very cool. One of the first major movies with a major star that had a witch in it. There was Practical Magic, a terrible movie with Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock. But that was a big. It made a lot of money. There are parts of it that were okay, and of course you got Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock in it, so it's going to be charming because you've got two very charming leads in the movie. It's directed by Griffin Dunne. Great actor who was in American Werewolf in London, of course, After Hours, but he's gone on to be a pretty interesting filmmaker, but that was one. Bell, Book, and Candle with Kim Novak, legendary one. If you're going to cast a witch and you want her to be cool and sexy, you could do a lot worse than Kim Novak. Into the Woods, which is based on the Broadway play. Wicked is another one based on the Broadway play, and they're making a movie out of that. I thought Wicked was fine. I'm a big fan of Into the Woods. I didn't like the movie. I thought the movie was not very good, but I love the stage play. I love the play Into the Woods. I love the musical. Didn't like the movie very much. Wicked, it's fun. It's fine. Another example, and that movie will be coming out soon. And Bedknobs and Broomsticks, one I grew up watching. Half animated, half live action, Angela Lansbury. It's a pretty shitty movie, but it's one of those Disney animated, half live action movies that I grew up watching when I was a little kid, so I have a soft spot in my heart for it, although it's pretty shitty. Bedknobs and Broomsticks. The Blair Witch Project doesn't really have a witch in it, but the legend of the witch and the witch just kind of hovers over the movie, and I don't give a shit what anybody says. Blair Witch Project is a great movie. It's a divisive movie. People hate it or they love it. I happen to love it. I think it's scary. I think it's brilliant. And I think it is one of the best horror films ever made. It's absolutely brilliant, and it's scary as hell. People who don't think the Blair Witch Project is scary have no nerve endings. So that's it. But yeah, I love Blair Witch Project, even though there's not really a witch in it. It's just the specter of the witch. Witches of Eastwick, a movie I'm not crazy about. George Miller directed it. You can't argue with the cast. Michelle Pfeiffer, the beautiful Michelle Pfeiffer, Susan Sarandon and Cher, Jack Nicholson. I just think the movie's a mess, and I know that George Miller had a very hard time while making it, so I'm not a big fan of that movie, but the three women are great. There are moments in it, but that's sort of a classic witch movie as well. And you've got all of the Miyazaki movies. Miyazaki films, that the animated movies. He's one of the greatest animators that's ever lived, and has made some of the best animated films of all time. But one of his obsessions is witches, and he brings them back a lot. Different forms, different styles of witches. But you've got Kiki's Delivery Service, you've got Howl's Moving Castle, you've got Spirited Away. Miyazaki's obsessed with witches and does them in different sort of tones and different ways beautifully. Let's see. Then there's The Witches, which has been made twice, based on Roald Dahl's story. It was made by Nicholas Roeg in 1990 with Angelica Houston, and it was made a couple of years ago by the great Robert Zemeckis with Anne Hathaway. They're both great. I prefer the Roeg version, even though I love the Zemeckis version, but the Nicholas Roeg version is fucking great. If you've never seen it, The Witches, it's scary. It's a great children's movie. It works on that line between being a scary kids movie and just terrifying in general, and a great fable. And Angelica Houston is amazing in it. Anne Hathaway is fantastic in the Robert Zemeckis version, which also is very, very faithful to the Roald Dahl original. The Witches, great movies. Hocus Pocus, everybody loves that movie. I don't. I think it's okay. I saw it the one time, and then after it became this cult classic that people love and watch over and over and over again, and that it's like a favorite at Halloween, and even beyond that, people love it, families adore it. Sarah Jessica Parker, Kathy Najimy, Bette Midler are these three witches. So I've gone back and I watched it again. I don't quite understand the massive appeal that it has, or the dedication that people have to it, or how much people love it. I don't get it. It's fine, I guess. It's not a great movie, not very good, in fact, but people love it. Hocus Pocus. And then we have Black Sunday, which is one of the classics, Mario Bava with Barbara Steele. Classic witch movie directed by the insanely talented Mario Bava, one of the most influential Italian horror directors of all time that's ever lived. And Black Sunday is a great, creepy, scary, awesome, moody film. Great witch movie, Black Sunday. Rosemary's Baby, devil movie and witch movie. There's no doubt that Ruth Gordon's character is a witch in it, so we'd have to put that in the category. And of course, Rosemary's Baby is one of the greatest horror films ever made. Really creepy, really scary, really, really deeply, deeply disturbing in every possible way. And Ruth Gordon's a witch in it, so you got to include that. Let's see. All the Harry Potter movies. You can't not include the Harry Potter movies. There's like a witch in every book, at least 1, 2, 3, 4 witches. Helena Bonham Carter in the Harry Potter movies, one of the greatest movie witches ever. I love the Harry Potter movies. Some are better than others, Prisoner of Azkaban being the best. But there are tons of witch characters in the books and in the movies. But my favorite movie witch in that series, without question, is Helena Bonham Carter, who's awesome. And then we'll get into some of my favorites now. We've got The Witch. The Witch is Robert Eggers' movie from about 5 years ago. Anya Taylor-Joy's first film. It is this incredible, creepy fable that, again, this is a movie that split people right down the middle. It's an A24 movie. Those assholes who don't like elevated horror, the A24 movies, automatically dismissed it because it was challenging. It made you use your brain, God forbid. So I love The Witch. I think it's a great film, magnificent. His follow-up, The Lighthouse, is great. I'm seeing The Northman, his new movie. I'm actually seeing it in about 4 hours. I will be watching The Northman, Robert Eggers' new magnificent movie. Robert Eggers is one of the great visionary talents working today, and The Witch is scary. It's scary as hell. It's deeply disturbing, and it is a very accurate portrayal of those times historically, with great performances and a goddamn Black Phillip, the goddamn goat, who wants to live deliciously. The Witch, a classic, one of the greatest witch movies of all time, ever. And then there's The Craft. What the fuck are we talking about here? One of the best movies ever made, The Craft. One of my favorite movies of all time, directed by the insanely underrated and underappreciated, magnificent writer-director Andrew Fleming, who could do anything, from comedy to drama to horror, anything. He did Threesome, he did Dick, the movie about Richard Nixon and the two girls, and he did many other things. He's a fantastic director. Bad Dreams, a terrific horror film. He's a great writer, a great director, and The Craft is one of the best movies ever, with Robin Tunney and Fairuza Balk. Zabulk from Return to Oz. Rachel True and Neve Campbell, they play 4 teenage witches. You've seen it, you know it, you love it. It's one of the best movies ever. And I know, like, I'm a 56-year-old guy. I'm a 56-year-old straight man who is obsessed with the movie The Craft. And I know that's a little weird because the movie, like, it speaks to young girls mostly. For some reason, it spoke to me. Hey, you're talking to the guy who thinks Felicity is the greatest show ever, who loved Party of Five. I have that Gilmore Girls is one of my favorite. There's that, I've talked about this before. I have like an inner teenage girl who adores all of those kinds of things. My So-Called Life is one of my favorite shows of all time. It's right in my wheelhouse. But anyway, The Craft, one of the greatest witch movies of all time. So The Witch, The Craft, and then to me, the greatest witch movie ever made, bar none. And The Witch is a masterpiece. The Craft is a masterpiece, and there have been other magnificent movies that feature witches, masterpieces and great films. None of them can hold a candle to Suspiria, the greatest witch movie ever made, the scariest movie ever made. The remake, by the way, also great, and also a great witch movie, a really, really great witch movie, featuring Tilda Swinton and of course the beautiful Dakota Johnson, who I'm in love with, and Mia Goth, who, by the way, is in the movie X right now. So the remake of Suspiria, magnificent, great, one of the best movies of that year, one of my favorite movies in the past 10 years, and it does a great job with witches. It is a fantastic, magnificent witch movie. But the original, Dario Argento, 1977, Suspiria, is the best witch movie ever made, period, bar none. You can take Wizard of Oz and you can shove it up your ass. In fact, you can take all of these movies and you can put them on the side. Some of them are great, some of them are masterpieces. None of them are as good as Suspiria. It's the scariest movie ever made. It's the best and scariest portrayal of witches of all time. It is a fairy tale, sort of a Disney-esque fairy tale, sifted through the insane eyes and visuals and genius of Dario Argento. It is sort of a Disney-inspired movie that is R-rated and gory and fucking terrifying with some of the biggest kills ever. It is inspired by the Giallo films, and it is yet incredibly supernatural, very scary, and the way it handles the characters of the witch and explains witches is amazing. It works on fairy tale levels, it works on horror levels, it works on fantasy levels. Obviously, the cinematography, the editing, the fucking score by Goblin, one of the greatest music scores in the history of film. All of it meshes together to create the scariest movie ever made, the best horror film, the scariest movie ever made, one of the greatest horror films ever made, and the best witch movie ever. You want to talk about great witch movies? Okay, talk about them. But then when you talk about the greatest witch movie ever made, you're talking about Suspiria, 1977. So there you go. Lots of great witch movies, lots of amazing ones. I particularly like The Craft, The Witch, but Suspiria stands head and shoulders above them all. And adding to that is You Won't Be Alone, which is a great film, and you should see it, and see it on the big screen. If Terrence Malick made a Grimm's fairy tale, gory horror film, it would be You Won't Be Alone. A major statement made by Goran Stovlevsky, who is an Australian-Macedonian filmmaker. It's his first feature, and he's made a magnificent first feature. So You Won't Be Alone, a beautiful, profoundly moving, beautiful film, and other witch movies to check out. So, witches!